In tonight's Dateline Defense, the fight against ISIS. The Pentagon is ramping up its mission to destroy the terrorist group by enlisting the help of Turkey. What is the U.S. legally allowed to do to protect the mission? For insight, we turn to our guest tonight on Capitol Insider, Molly O'Toole, reporter for Defense One. All right, Molly, U.S. officials say they're still unclear about the legality of using American troops to protect Syrian opposition fighters that they've trained to fight ISIS. The Pentagon is planning to fly missions out of Turkey and help clear the border, but it could mean fights with the Syrian government army. It all seems very complex. Break it down for us.
So far, the Obama administration's strategy for Syria when it comes to the Islamic State fight, we know that's obviously a major front in the Islamic State fight. It's their sort of de facto headquarters there. It's mainly consisted of this train and equip mission by which the Pentagon will take on some of the moderate Syrian opposition to essentially be our ground force in Syria. Now, so far, they've revealed that only 60 fighters have actually come through that program. And one of the complications of this is they haven't yet answered the question and actually told us that they don't yet know if they have the legal authority to defend those fighters if those fighters come into contact with the forces of the Syrian government. And some of those fighters have actually already been put back into Syria, so they're already there. We also have the development that the U.S. Is entering and finalizing an agreement with Turkey to not only launch airstrikes, both U.S. and coalition airstrikes from bases within Turkey, but to essentially clear what they're calling a safe zone as part of the Turkey-Syria border. And it's still unclear also, if Assad decides to respond to that action, clearing this area of his border as well, what the legal authority would be for the U.S. to enforce that safe zone.
Now, the U.S. relationship with Syria has been icy at best. President Obama himself has called for a regime change. If U.S.-trained fighters do engage with the country's army, what's likely to happen? Could it spark a war with Assad?
That's the concern, and I think that's why the administration has been clear to emphasize that this mission focuses on the Islamic State. They even had these fighters that we've trained and equipped. They had them pledged to fight ISIS only and not Assad because of this concern that if they engage with the Syrian government forces, that the U.S. would then be obligated to defend them, which could spark a broader war. So I think that's the concern, but there still remain a lot of unanswered questions at this point.
You're right, because for now the Defense Department is dodging the question, and it's frustrating lawmakers. Do you think this is something that will be resolved anytime soon, or is the Obama administration hoping it doesn't have to make a decision, Molly?
Well, they're certainly hoping they don't have to make a decision. They're hoping that this hypothetical situation in which Assad's forces would interact with U.S. forces or the forces that we're relying on in Syria that we've trained and equipped, they're hoping it never comes to pass. But I do think this is going to be resolved soon. They have said and they recognize that the U.S. does have an obligation to these troops that we're training and equipping, and also that this big question is among the details that's being worked out in the agreement with Turkey, because if they're going to be involved, if U.S. forces, even from the air, are going to be involved in clearing the border of ISIS fighters, that they're going to have to answer these questions. They're going to have the legal authority in order to take those actions.
Let's switch gears to Guantanamo Bay. The White House says the time is near to closing the Cuban military base for good, but a key part of their plan is illegal. Current laws forbid the transfer of Gitmo prisoners to the U.S. Now, is there any way a Republican-led Congress would change the law?
Well, right now that's what they're debating. The Obama administration has said, really for the first time recently, that they're working on a draft, a physical copy of a plan to close Guantanamo. Lisa Monaco, who's a key advisor, said over the weekend that that plan would necessarily include making transfers to the United States for the irreducible minimum, the so-called worst of the worst that can't be safely moved elsewhere and also can't be prosecuted. But as we said, U.S. law currently says that there can be no transfers to the United States. Now, at the moment, the Senate and the House are both working through the National Defense Authorization Act, where this is one of the key questions. Senator McCain wants to give the Obama administration an opening, albeit a narrow opening, that would allow them to close the prison and make transfers to the United States if they submit a plan to Congress that Congress then approves. But he's even said that he's having some difficulty facing opposition from Republican lawmakers who are pretty adamantly opposed still appeal to those transfers to the United States. That said, many, even if they oppose those transfers to the U.S., do share the assessment that if the prison were to be closed, that moves to the U.S. would be necessary, because where else would they go if not here?
Well, here's the deal, Molly. As you know, not only is it illegal for the prisoners to be held on U.S. soil, it's also against the law for the U.S. to assist in the prosecution or detention of the detainees, meaning there's no funding to even build another prison to hold them. Is the Obama administration planning a workaround?
So that's the tricky thing at the moment, is the members of Congress have called for the administration to give them a plan to close Guantanamo, knowing full well that they themselves have passed the law that says not only can you not make transfers to the United States, you also can't really do advanced planning. You can't identify facilities, you can't modify existing facilities, you can't construct new U.S. facilities to hold Guantanamo detainees. So that's kind of the catch-22 they've put the Obama administration in here. They say they want the plan. Now, as the administration drafts this plan, they know that it's dependent on congressional action to change some laws in order for them to actually implement it.
I guess we won't know until these laws get changed. The prisoners have to go somewhere, right? We just don't know what's going to happen to them.
Right, and not as of yet, but that's the big question, the question that's remained unanswered throughout the Obama administration. And this is really their last best shot to try and get these questions answered, to try and get these laws changed and allow Obama to achieve what has been one of his really signature pledges since he took office.
Lots going to be happening the next few months. We'll stay on top of it. Molly O'Toole, reporter for Defense One. Thanks, Molly.
Thanks.